him and punch him in the mouth, leave his face fucking swollen.
Welcome to another Three Aficionados with that hard transition. Here we are talking about all things analog, cars, watches, beer, and the occasional episode of racism. So we're going to throw it off to you today with some random stuff that's new dropping in the watch news, like the new Audemars Piguet, some new updates that we've seen from scandals around cars that we know, like 718, some new car updates on our garage. And with that, I'm going to shut up and let's just pop it off and get Leffa time. Oh no, he ruined it. Fuck's sakes. He's got his raspberry. Well, 2 for 3.
I'm sorry.
You're about to be a paramedic, man. Someone's gonna have to slap you into slap you in line here.
But most likely Daniel has already opened his or is going to be out of synchrony. So 3, 2, 1. I feel like you just made the noise on the side there.
Well, I didn't, but
sorry, boys.
I still fucked it up.
Oh my
Right
God.
out the gate.
Point there.
You know, for some reason, I can never open these fucking things.
That's because
Excuse my language, everybody. We just started. What's going on here, you know?
You got to use your teeth.
There we go.
I've got like some weird fuzz on that. So that's coming through on the YouTube video.
You know how much money my parents spent on braces when I was a kid? I can't. It's part of my selling feature.
That's how Sukasa does it. He just experience money, spits bars, and rips off bottle caps.
Chews glass for fun on YouTube.
He does.
Gets those crazy views.
That's all his views, for sure. Well, cheers, boys. Well,
Cheers,
Dan's going to work on opening up a fucking bottle by hand and doesn't realize that it needs a bottle opener. Oh, he's pouring it. Good job.
You guys ever done that? Open a beer by accident that's a pop top with your hand
and then like ripped your hand apart?
Oh yeah, badly. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like that happened a lot in your heyday.
I worked as a sailor and I definitely torn my hands apart a few times, but that was a bad one.
You tore your what apart?
Hands.
In the Navy.
With my accent coming out.
Tore each other's assholes up real good.
Oh, I wish I was in Halifax now. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Well, what are we sporting on the wrist today? Let's do a wrist check. Peter, you're coming in through a very high definition, while Daniel is coming in the grainy dark web camera. So let's
get that fixed one day, I promise.
Very nice.
Thought I would bring out, since it's been on the topic quite a bit recently, my clear Casio G-Shock, the jellyfish. I know Steve just got himself the gray one recently, so I thought I'd wrap this for. I don't know why I actually threw it on today, to be honest. I kind of just have worn it in a while since I was in Calgary, so I threw it on when I got back. And yeah, it was. It's always a nice watch to wear. I kind of enjoy. I've said this multiple times, but it's one of those watches you can just kind of throw on and just like not have to worry about. It's just for enjoyment. And yeah, I was. One thing that comment about too, I was gonna say, but I forgot. But I don't know if my light's actually a different color, if it's just because mine's clear. But I find the light actually looks, well, maybe it looks more blue on the camera than it. I thought my light was actually more clear than yours, but
it looks pretty blue. But now that Peter already gave the reveal that the watch is on my wrist, we got the new G-Shock. This is the Earth Tones discontinued gray color. I don't know. It's got a lot of random nicknames like the Gray One or Gray Wolf. Yeah, it's the Casio, and it's I got it for free, and it lights up pretty similarly, maybe less bluey. No, pretty bluey, pretty similar.
oh yeah,
Blue. I like it a lot. I just did a big kind of move out of my mom's storage utility container, and it was awesome to move shit around and not have to worry about. But I still.
That's where you lived before living in this house.
It's actually where I was conceived.
You were You were conceived in a storage unit and lived there all through med school.
Right.
Wow, how does the news not know about this? I'm calling up CBC.
I've never seen
I'll wait until after the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. So I like
about this doctor who was raised.
I think the size on my wrist, I was wondering if it would be a little too big because it's like 45, I think, 45 millimeters. But, it's just kind of like an AP, as we'll be discussing. It just seems to fit the dimensions, and it's fairly slim. I find it actually sits on the wrist way better than the John Mayer G-Shock. So it's a nice one. I don't know which one I prefer. I feel like this one I actually prefer more than the John Mayer. And if I had started with this, I don't know if I would have felt so compelled. But it's a cool addition. And it's nice to have both of them. Daniel?
I really like that one. I think the John Mayer one is more like the traditional classic G-Shock that a lot of us grew up with, but redesigned, obviously, a little bit modernized.
Yeah.
Whereas this is ultra modern and clearly influenced by a different style rather than G-Shock's own unique style, which is, they kind of forged the way for the look of those watches. So I think they're both cool for different reasons. I think that does look better on your wrist though.
Yeah. Well, I was just working
great size for you.
Seeing patients on the ward, it's like a great watch to have and not have to worry about anything and just be able to dip this in cyanide afterwards and just be like, no more COVID and not have to worry about it. I just saw my grandparents and embraced a little bit of my slight heritage, if you even could call that anything. And I wore probably the most, I'd say, Chinese New Year watch I possibly could. So here's a little bit of date just Wimbledon, a little bit of green. I feel like this makes me look like an old Chinese man. Not to be racist, but slightly racist. My apologies. But this kind of is much more mature than I actually am, and it's got the green on it to just have that little good luck charm or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna stop being so rigid.
Well, no, before you finish though, Happy New Year. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Year.
I've actually been looking forward to it.
I don't usually operate on the moon calendar, but calendar doesn't usually apply to me.
I don't ride on Shabbos.
That's great.
Or the Chinese New Year. Doesn't happen.
See, the thing is, that quote that you just used is way more classic. From Big Lebowski. I feel like that goes closer to my heart.
That was a great movie, and I mean, for you, you've got that for your New Year, and you can just lend me one of your gold watches for my New Year.
You're not even Jewish. It's by marriage.
What am I, adopted? So you'll lend me a gold watch for the Jewish New Year. It's just been decided, and you've got that for the Chinese New Year. I don't have to lend you anything. It's perfect.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
I was hoping you'd lend me the red boy, the red G-Shock you got. I feel like that should be the one that you're sporting for Chinese New Year, and then you'd sport and you'd match all the G-Shocks that we've got here.
Did you notice I have the right sort of the right colors?
You do.
Going for the right inspiration to show solidarity with my friends.
Just to put the cherry on the Sunday of my racism, I am sporting the ultimate outfit and colors. I've got the green scrubs. So,
Well, if you're going to go that deep, I've got my gold necklace on with my fucking hood on.
For those who are tuning in, both Daniel and I are just going to go take a little bit of racial immunity, just around the nearest minority that we are. Daniel, half Jewish, and
pretty sure we both grew up eating bagels and lox on Saturdays and dim sum on Sundays. There's a lot of strong similarities. Peter, he was on a ranch somewhere, I'm sure, having a steak or
almost
big
as
ribeye.
cute as one another, but probably I win. Yeah. Well, now that we've offended every single person who could potentially be tuning in here, while Peter sits there laughing his ass off, trying not to be racist, just remember, Peter is a good person, and if anyone deserves to be fired, I guess it's probably me. But Yeah.
Are you saying that you can laugh at racist jokes but still be a good person?
That's an interesting question. I feel like nobody's laughing anymore. You just took
No.
the piss out of it.
The SJWs have taken up megaphones and they're in a square somewhere protesting. They're hunting down Jordan Peterson right now, getting mad because apparently he influenced us to say these things. Anyways, if you guys read books, he's a great professor and author. I'll endorse that.
I'm not going to even touch that. I feel like he's such a controversial figure. I still haven't really even listened to really, but I know that he has some pretty hard opinions that perhaps I might not necessarily be aligned on, but I do not know about him for sure.
Definitely. I don't necessarily have to agree with the beliefs of every belief of one person.
You do need to believe in everything that I do, though.
I do.
You don't.
I do. Yeah. I'll jump quickly into my wrist check now because I've been talking the most. Does that sounds fair, right?
Yeah.
I've just got my Victorinox Dive Master on. That was, whoa, hey, where's the camera at? Previously, Steve's.
There is no camera.
Yeah, not with this grain quality. It's actually a filter, grain filter. I'm trying to be more metal. Trying to go old school retro rock and roll, or 90s hip hop, Wu-Tang under a bridge, kind of grainy.
Trying to go more analog.
More like
This is pretty intentional.
It's more homemade sex video, I'm pretty sure there, Daniel.
With which celebrity? J-Lo.
No.
Then I'll take it. That's a nice compliment. Thank you. All right, I'm done. Back to you guys.
Beautiful wrist shot. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
All right, let's get into it. We're gonna do some watch news. I'm gonna share my screen here, and so we've got a new AP drop. I feel like everybody by now has learned about it. With the 50th anniversary, we've got a new jumbo extra thin 16/2202. That's 16/202. Comes in a variety of different dial variations here, but obviously the classic. But I kind of like the green and the gold, if I'm being honest. What do you guys think about this? I think this is the new in-house 7121 that's applied here. We're talking about the big boy flagship, but I feel like, the classic one's always the blue nuit. I guess the blue black or midnight blue one. I feel like that's the one that I'd want for the rest of my life. But probably the watch of now is the green dial. The one that I'd probably want to have if I just wanted to stunt on people would be like the gold on gold one that just makes your eyes just sear. And I feel like that's definitely the Chinese New Year watch of now. What are you sporting here, Daniel? I feel like I'm going to be racist and say you're all gold.
Well, often I love the all gold look, yeah. But in this case, I'm going to go with the more slate colored dial and the and is a stainless steel bracelet and casing. I think I'm not really a big AP fan, but I recently saw one of those on my watch guy's wrist, and we had a little bit of a look at it together. And in person and on the wrist, it was quite interesting and impressive looking. So I might have to change my opinion on it now that I've actually had a chance to see one up close.
You mean you have a friend who has a better watch collection than me?
No, he's like my I don't know, he's my horologist, my watch repair guy.
Oh really? You're a horologist?
Yeah. Shout out to Andrew.
Hey Andrew.
He's like the greatest guy.
I feel like your horologist just sounds like he's, palpated your prostate at one.
Well, no, but it's close. I've got his name in my phone book, and we text.
You text?
He's going home to England to visit his family soon. So, we trust each other with that kind of information.
And
I trust him with my watches.
Good.
Does a great job. He's at the place at like a bay in college called 9 to 5, where he's had his own shop for about 30 years. He's been working there 5 days a week for 30 years. He's authorized to work on all of these watches, and he's really just like the greatest guy. So I am not sponsored by him. He just he does such a good job on the pieces that I have, and I've taken a piece from my uncle and someone else over there as well. Really nice, great, really nice, great guy. Sound like I have a crush, but I just admire his workmanship, you know, and all that.
And he's got an AP. You know what I really like is
a few other things.
The drilling points here, or whatever the screws. They all have a perfect symmetry. They're not like randomly screwed in. And it's I think that when you look at the Cartier that we were looking at before, they were a little bit, you know, mismatched and kind of off in different directions, as far as I can recall when we were talking about the Santos. So I kind of like the symmetry and the perfection here. It's so funny because, you know, we've been talking about the Casio, and there's so many mods for the, you know, the G-Shocks, and so a lot of people try to make them look like actual Royal Oaks, and they have like the aftermarket metal that will make it look like this is an AP. I feel like that's just filling it. Like I would not want to do that. That's just like basically putting, you know, a rear trunk fence on a Mercedes. You know who you are, you bastard, and trying to ventilate your trunk to make it look like you're running a GT Porsche car. Yeah,
Just be proud of what you own.
Exactly. I'm proud of it.
Already, it's such a cool watch.
This one.
And relax.
For sure.
You know? Go modify something else. Leave that one alone. It's already fine.
Here's my question though. Would you sport the 37 rather than the big boy jumbo? Because the jumbo is really the one that everyone aspires to own. But I feel like this very light blue, you know, light blue boy, Peter kind of watch, I feel like is all Peter. This is the little boy blue here. No?
Yeah, 37's nice too. I don't think it'd be too big either. I feel like 37 would be reasonable. And color's nice as well.
If it had no date, it would be probably perfect, I think, because this is such a minimalist dial. All you have is Audemars Piguet on that, and that's it. And you don't get the AP or the date. I almost wish that it just said AP on it rather than Audemars Piguet on it. It would be pretty cool. I feel like this light blue kind of reminds me of the Platona, the Platinum Daytona, with the kind of light blue and the chocolate bezel. I'm really digging it. This is the one that I think stands out the most of all the releases. I'm not sure if I'd want the 37 versus the big boy. I feel like I'd be more of a 37 with my weak, effeminate wrists. So I don't know. It works pretty well for this 36 Datejust. But yeah, what do you guys think? 37 or jumbo? I feel like Daniel's more of a jumbo boy.
I would pick this one actually over everything. This is the 37, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have appreciated watches of of different sizes most of my life. But to me, it just comes down to the style of the watch, what I think size suits it best, and also what would look best on my wrist. And I think this would probably be the one if I looked at it from that perspective. I like the dial. It looks great. I like the color. It looks nicer than that Tiffany one. I like the color a lot more. I like the finish on it. That's the Patek though. Yeah.
And we've beat to shit the turquoise Patek. Me that started it all. And here's Leonardo DiCaprio being a bastard and, you know, just casually rocking it right on the wrist. But I think the funny thing is that there was a recent release that there was this young guy who I guess worked for Philips who had made a bid, a lowish bid of the very halves to get the first Patek Nautilus Tiffany. I mean, I think that there was a lot of hate on him for that, and he was just like, I'm very humble. I just basically made a very reasonable submission of just a ridiculous amount of money for a watch. I don't know if I feel like Hodinkee was really trying to sell that he was an enthusiast. Not to say that Leonardo DiCaprio or Jay-Z are necessarily. I feel like Jay-Z deserves it more. It's the craziest thing to say, but I don't know.
He's got a crazy watch collection, man.
Yeah, I feel like anybody who wears one of these right now is just gonna have so much hate towards them. But at the same time, everyone's just like, well, it's DiCaprio, of course. He ended up with that, right? But the fun thing is that he's a Tag Heuer ambassador, so I feel like if we just sell him out, that eventually maybe Tag could just congratulate me with a Patek. No. I think we've got Peter who's going to be sharing some other news that I don't even know about. These guys are much more aligned to the Oris line, and Daniel probably being the most hard up for a big pointer, and that being not a big penis, the big pointer watch. So we'll let Peter talk a little bit about little Peter and big pointer.
Oh, Peter and big pointer. Okay, give me half a second here to pop this sucker up.
Gone blank, so his camera is deactivated. It still looks like it's higher quality than Daniel's camera, though.
Yeah, no camera is sometimes a better option.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out here the new Oris that popped up most recently, and I was just gonna. I'm just having
Peter's
trouble
trying to wipe his desktop from all the dick pics that we're sharing.
No, I'm just trying to find where here we go. I had it on my screen before. I wanted to share it. Share content.
I feel like there's a high likelihood that now my patients have been saying that they YouTube me, that they'll come across this and they'll just end up being like, why do you talk so much about penises? And then they'll be like, oh yeah, it's because you treat prostate cancer. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a specialist.
That's right. All I think about is dicks and prostate.
Alrighty, can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, so this is something that we kind of chatted about a little bit, not necessarily on camera, but a little bit in the past. And this is the newest I guess one of the newest configurations of the Big Crown by Oris. I don't know if it's in this specific configuration. I know there was a few different dial configurations, and I really personally enjoyed the couple in blue, but I believe this is the only one I have to share at the moment. So this is one we'll be going with, but it's kind of like a baby blue dial configuration, and everything's bronze. It looks like the case is a Jubilee style, and it's quite pretty in my opinion. It'd be interesting to see. I bet you it's quite heavy, but yeah, it's very pretty. It's kind of cool. I think Oris has come out with a few bronze watches recently, and I have my bronze watch, and I'm a big fan of it. I think it's kind of a pretty metal to make a watch out of. I think it's definitely a lot more affordable than gold, but I think it kind of has like an interesting look to it compared to just your normal stainless steel. I definitely don't think it necessarily looks like gold like my Tudor. Definitely, I don't think looks like rose gold. It's kind of got a different look to it, but it just looks more unique in my opinion. I think it's kind of cool that they're starting to make more watches out of it. I know they did a few in the past couple of years that have come out with it, but yeah, this is my understanding. It's still using the same movement and things like that they've been running most recently. I don't think too much has changed about it other than just the style, if I'm correct, unless anyone has anything else to.
I believe it is now made with the new in-house movement. That I think we can see that there as well if you scroll down just a little bit and it shows their specifications. So a little bit exactly. So as far as I understand, it was once an ETA, and right there, it was once an ETA movement, and I believe it has recently been upgraded, which might also have impacted the price and made it jump up a little bit. Because I do believe we used to be able to get these for a little bit less money, but I would say that now the in-house movement does demand a premium, especially in the current market. Like it's probably a worthwhile upgrade as well.
And it's
Nice.
really
nice.
interesting that in a bronze that it looks, like you said, a little bit more like a rose gold. And it has almost the beads of grain of rice bead, anal bead, what that kind of like basically grandpa's chair cover thing that gives you a bit of massage when you roll on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
But-
like you see in some people with Oldsmobiles.
It softens the look of it and the color and the shade of it. Usually bronze is a little bit more brutal, a little bit more masculine. This, like you said, it's a little bit more of a pretty watch. It's a little bit more something that you imagine would be kind of vintage and something maybe your grandfather would pass down to you after you like basically rip up all of his chair covers. But yeah, it's an interesting watch for sure. I feel like the old big pointer, big crown pointer is the one that still speaks to me more, especially in the dark navy blue that you're showing there. But which one would you go with, Daniel?
Well, I believe this is the brand new one that just came out, right? We talked about this model
Yeah,
a
that's
little
right.
while ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the model I would choose.
Loved it.
I do love this model. Yeah, I think this is the one I would pick.
Mm-hmm.
That blue dial with the small seconds at 6 o'clock. There's a lot that I really like about it. I like the simplicity of the rest of the watch. You know, I like that the bezel is just a nice polished metal. Often I prefer divers watches because it just gives me something to play with, which I don't know. I think every watch person enjoys just having little extra toys to play with. So I've typically graduated towards divers watches in the past when I've made my own purchases, but I have been gifted several watches. Thankfully, I'm quite fortunate in that way, and most of them have very different kind of bezels, and most of them are quite plain, like this one. So, I like the bezel. I like that it's more simple than the other bezels that have that kind of ribbed look to them, and I really like the dome crystal on this. But I can totally see why someone likes the previous Oris that we were just talking about in the all bronze. I think that's stunning. I think that's a beautiful dial color combination with the bracelet and the case. I think the bracelet's a nice type of bracelet to choose for that particular watch.
This
So
is still the one that I'd go for if I were Daniel and not me shitting on the fact that the price is just too close to Black Bay 58.
fair enough. Well, if I was shopping for a watch right now, I do think this actually suits my collection more than a Black Bay 58, as I have some divers watches, and something that would be maybe something that I could dress up a little bit more would be nice to add to my collection. So
like a Wimbledon 36 milliliter with lucky green numerals.
it's a beautiful watch, but I'll go for the green Daytona instead if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, we'll get you ready to roll. Let's jump into car news there. Peter, do you want to share your bit of car news? Do you have car news, or are we mostly?
Yeah, I mostly watched news tonight, boys,
Okay,
and it
and I'm
was
gonna share-
minimal.
Well, that's fair enough. I'm gonna now start sharing my car news, and I'm going to share that screen. And for some reason, it keeps on coming up on Suka, so this is a good promo for Suka. So I thought it was interesting, actually. This was really under the radar that the Mustang GT3 is coming, and they're kind of teasing that it's coming around. It's really interesting that a lot of car makers are having these race car oriented focused releases that allude to the possibility that maybe there will be a production car. So, with the Toyota GT3 and with the Ford GT3, it'll be kind of interesting to see all of these other kind of race oriented, perhaps production cars. We'll see what comes of it. I don't think that there's really anything that we know at all about it, other than it will be running for IMSA, and it will be at the Daytona 24. and it'll be sporting apparently the 5-liter Coyote V8, and it'll be naturally aspirated. So it'll be interesting to see if something new comes of it, a new model perhaps, that you can spec out. I feel like that would be a lot more appealing to me than the GT500. If this comes in a manual, that might be something that could compel me. But this similarly goes in line with other race car oriented things. And Peter had talked about what he was looking forward to most in 2022 drops, and that being the Porsche supercar. And everyone kind of speculates what it'll be, like GT1. Will it be a 919, or will it be something similar to, like, based upon the Le Mans LMDH prototype? I don't know. The LMDH Le Mans prototype looks pretty awesome in the camouflage right here. And what's interesting to me is that I don't know if they previously mentioned this, but it's going to be sporting the V8 with turbocharging technology. I wouldn't be surprised if it's also running some sort of electric augmentation, but it also is going to be running on their renewable fuels that they've been promoting. To me, that would be super appealing. How cool would that be if it was an engine that was a V8 turbo, but they said, well, it's ready to go for renewable energy source, and you could still run regular gasoline in it. I really pray that would be the next supercar, and to me, that would be a left nutter and a right nutter. I'd sell everything for that.
That says the engine revs to 10,000 RPM. A V8 that revs to 10,000 RPM.
That's almost as good as the T33 and the T50. The Gordon Murray.
Yeah, this looks like a potentially absolutely crazy car.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
It looks so good too.
Yeah, it does.
That's
really looks like it's from the future.
Yeah.
That's Peter's major choice. Actually, that is one thing that we talked a little bit about as something that I was looking forward to back when just the emblem was being leaked on their Instagram. I was really hoping that the T50 baby, the T30 3 was going to be something that was a little bit more approachable. It's still like, I think 1.5 million. So unfortunately, it's still not in the books for me. But interesting, it's still a V12 supercar coming from Gordon Murray, obviously the creator of the McLaren F1. To Daniel's happiness, it no longer has the crazy turbine in the back. But to me, I feel like the T50 design was a little bit more carefully thought about. This seems like a mishmash of a lot of random designs. There's some interesting angles, some interesting elements. So the T33 has got the V12. It revs a little bit lower. It only goes to 11,000 rather than like nearly 12,000 like the T50. Still mid-engine, still carbon tub. It doesn't have the mid-seated points, and it's manual. So to me, I wish that there was just a baby version of the T33. Give me the T.11 or something like that, and just cleave off a few cylinders. That would be super cool if you could have something that revved that high and was like a V8 or a V10. Like a V10, that's so reasonable. Just make it like a Carrera GT that revs to piss. And nowadays, to have it with a manual would be super cool. But to me, I think I'd go T50 design. I feel like this rear end of the T33 does look better than the T50. What do you think? You're going to put 1.37 million quid down for this, Daniel?
I would go for the T50.
Yeah.
If I was in the market,
of course.
I would be able to get over how much I hate the rear end of the car pretty quickly once I jump into that mid-car seated position. To me, that just makes the car so interesting.
It's the McLaren F1 experience.
It's an extremely unique experience. Most people don't get to drive either an open cockpit racer and sit in the middle, or sit in a real thoroughbred like that. And I've always either sat on the left or the right of a car while driving. I've never personally had the chance to drive a car while sitting in the middle of it. And it's something that, like if I had the money, I would spend the money just to try that out and see what that experience was like. Because to me, that's really what's so exciting about that car is the driving position. Everything else obviously super exciting as well, but it looks better from almost every direction than this car. This car looks way better from the straight on from the back. So, I mean, I wish that they could have this rear end on the T50 and then I'd be ecstatic. I would think it's the incredibly beautiful car. This I would just settle for in a way because I don't like the looks of it too much, but I know that it would be a performance monster.
Also, if you're a billionaire who can afford a Gordon Murray supercar, like what's a few million here or there? Do you really want the one that's light and like just a little bit less?
Or maybe you can have both.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're just a crazy motherfucker who just is a warlord taking all the money of the world, fair enough.
Like the Sultan of, oh, never mind. I won't say that. Since you just said warlord, I'm not going to follow that up with anything.
They're monitoring. We already talked about Russia offline. Okay, we'll jump into Peter's impressions. What do the youth think of this now?
I think both of them are cool. I personally would be going for the T50, I think, over the T33. I think, like, you guys hit on some good points. The middle seating is really cool. I think that's an experience in itself. But I do think the styling of the T50 is a little bit more there. I think it kind of plays a little bit of tribute to the, like, I personally do see a little bit of the classic F1 style in the T50, and I do like that. And towards the T33, like you're saying, it's just kind of random and it just kind of seems a little bit out there. Not saying it doesn't look good, but I just like I don't know if it's for me. And so if I could choose one or the other, I'd probably go with the T50. And I mean, it is a little bit better performance wise, so you get that as well. But I think it's pretty cool. I think they're both very interesting. I think it's kind of a unique take. I like how it's manual, and how high they rev is really cool too. I think that's pretty insane. You don't see that very often in production cars, so
but can't we just take out like 4 cylinders, make it rev to like way beyond what we'd ever expect at like beyond 10,000 RPM, put it in mid points, carbon monocoque, let us have mid seating position? That would just be end game, right? Even if
it'd be so cool.
500 grand, it would be something to clamor over. It would just be like to slightly touch the face of God, like almost a McLaren F1, the closest that we can get, right? It'd be kind of cool, but yeah,
super cool.
I know maybe this is a weird thing to follow that. Maybe I don't think it's a weird thing. Sorry, something I'll just follow it up with is like I've always been a bit of a Ferrari and Porsche fanboy, so a car like this versus the T50 would really have to do a lot to pull me away from some of the crazy offerings that those brands bring to the table. If that makes any sense to you guys.
Yeah, I feel like it's gotta be heavily grounded in McLaren F1, right? Like if it offers that part of that experience, if it is like 8-cylinder, mid-engine, mid-seating position, crazy Gordon Murray technology, I feel like that could potentially be something that would be really appealing to me. Mm-hmm. But as you said, who the hell knows what happens to these cars afterwards? I mean, Gordon Murray has already told stories of what happens to the McLaren F1s and having to like fly people by helicopter, fly out the mechanic to support these cars. I only imagine like how are you going to support a lot of these cars as they expand it further. But if I could just slightly get that experience, I feel like that would be pretty cool. But if you told me that there was a T.11 coming, that it was either that or the Porsche supercar, and they were both at the same price point, obviously, if it's not a crazy like electric and it's more aligned to that LMDH Le Mans prototype, I'm going Porsche all day long. But it really depends, because I feel like this is still interestingly, this is almost like the singer of supercars. Gordon Murray gets it, right? Like he's he's sticking to what's still analog. It's like crazy technology, but it's still manual. It's still naturally aspirated. It's still going to rev to piss, right? So it's just kind of cool. But yeah, I feel like Peter meant to talk a little bit about this. This is the Nissan Z. This is definitely a more approachable, interesting car. But Peter, do you want to take the helm and chat a little bit about what the children are talking about today?
Sure, yeah, I can definitely do it. I think it's cool. It's an interesting kind of, I don't know if I would call it a re-release, but kind of a take on like previous styles, and I think it's pretty interesting. It seems to bring a lot for what it's worth. My understanding, if I remember from when I read it first time, it's around like 400 horsepower or something along the lines. And it's I believe it can be offered in manual as well. Let's see.
It's
Yeah, I
making
think
400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet from
yeah,
a liter V6.
which I mean that's pretty impressive, I would say, for considering Nissan. You know, like a lot of their previous models that have been pushing like the GTR has been not naturally aspirated. It's been the use of turbochargers, so it's kind of neat to see the fact that they're using it is twin turbocharged. Just kidding, I'm talking out my butt here. It's still turbocharged. I thought it was naturally aspirated for a minute. I'm like, that's quite impressive. But okay, it looks like it's basically running almost, if my understanding is, like a baby down version of a GTR engine. It looks like at this point, which is kind of interesting to see, and I think that's pretty cool. It's rear wheel drive, and yeah, I'd be interested to see how much it's gonna come out for. I think will be one of the biggest questions, because I think this could be a very accessible car for what it's worth. It seems to have a lot of good features, and it is rear wheel drive. I understand, like, it's kind of like they try to make it more mid-engine, even though it is front engine, but the engine's more towards the middle of the car, so it tries to make it more balanced. And I think it looks good personally with styling wise. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah, it definitely looks like the old 240Z Datsun look right from this back shot. This is definitely the money shot here. But like I feel like other angles, especially the front, I don't know, not so sure. But you know, as you said, pretty impressive. It'll be entry level, very approachable. That face, I don't know about, but you know, you just look at the T33 and you're like, well, maybe the T33 just pips it a little bit, but
maybe
just a tad.
maybe the jury's out.
Porker though, it's 3,500 pounds. It'll be interesting to see how they hold up.
Yeah.
What I like here is they mentioned that the Canadian version will have a block heater, so it'll be perfectly suited for you, Peter.
That's hilarious.
Replacing
Take that to Lethbridge safely.
exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I think is interesting is like the some of the Halo cars for certain car nuts like myself and potentially you guys as well, but I'll just speak for myself here. Whereas, you know, the E39 BMW M5, or the E39 5 Series, as well as like the BMW E46, you could probably speak more closely to Porsches and other models. But, you know, in the early 2000s, you know, the BMW M3, which is still like highly regarded as one of the best driving cars of all time, made 333 horsepower out of a straight six engine, naturally aspirated, of course, not the same engine, but we have a car nowadays which is going to be much less expensive, that offers far more power. And I just think it's cool right now, you know, that you can go out and buy this Nissan that makes 400 horsepower, and the E39 M5 made 400 horsepower out of its, you know, incredible V8. So, I mean, I'm not comparing them in the sense that I would like to me that there's a debate. I would obviously pick the two BMWs myself if I had the option. But I'm just making the comparison to show the kind of progress that we've come to, where these new sports cars that are actually attainable for most people are exceeding the performance specs of cars that were unattainable to most people.
You literally
And
exactly
very
thread
cool.
right to an E46 M3 that I looked at. And so this is actually one that I was thinking about because, I was thinking nostalgically, the market's really moving up on E39s and E46s, and E39s are so hard to find. And I realized that my dad's old neighbor had bought an E46 that was quite mint back in the day, like 10 years ago. I was like, hey, whatever happened to that? And I asked to check it out. And it's like a manual, 40,000 kilometers. And it's just been sitting in his garage. It's a non-competition. I wish that it was a competition. It's a California car. He has put on like 2,000 kilometers in the 10 years that he's owned it. I do really question like how well it's been maintained. He's an engineer, but because he's put on like 0 miles, it's like you haven't done Vanos valve adjustments or done any of the maintenance that everybody fears about these cars when they go wrong. Subframe looked great. Those are kind of the 3 primary ones that you got to look out for. But this car is pretty cool. But as you mentioned, it's just like I looked at this and I was like, that's kind of cool. I mean, for the right price, it'd be kind of interesting. But I got into the Golf R driving away and I was like, shit, this is a nice car. And it has almost the same amount of power and it's lighter. So yeah, we've moved on a lot, haven't we? But this is still a pretty cool analog machine.
I would still take this over your Golf R. No offense.
Yeah, for sure. If
but
I
not for
would make the lateral move for sure.
But I wouldn't pick this as a daily driver, so that would be the trade-off. You have a Golf R as a daily driver. This would be a weekend car and a good weather car.
Yeah.
Purely because of the age of it. If I had a brand new M3, I'd drive it daily, no problem.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I went with the daily driver with that 330 for my wife's car when her friend decided to part with it. And so it's going to be a good one to kick around. I got to do the rear brakes, but it's a 2017 and it was a no-brainer for, basically getting the trade-in price. And it's great because it has all the niceties, all the convenience factors, and it has a really good stereo. And they even have XM radio still in there. So, my cheap ass who won't pay for XM radio, I'm taking advantage of that. But, yeah,
that's a sweet ride. I've already said it before privately, but I'm and probably publicly, but I'm jealous. That's a very nice pickup.
And Daniel's going to share a little bit of his car news if he's got the dark web prawn and
The dark web.
I've given up share screening privileges. Do you have
of course
loaded and ready?
Let me get you guys going down a very dark path.
All right. It's funny that we talk about all these things analog and then I turn around and I go and I see the market going down and I put money into Tesla and Lucid and Bitcoin when I saw everything dump out. But here we are.
You're probably making the right decision.
Well,
the first piece of random car news is that I've heard about this drive for a long time. It goes all the way from Dawson City to the ocean. That's all the way up in the Yukon, just through the Arctic Circle. And I have proposed to the boys or the aficionados to be more gender neutral. That one day,
I believe we're all
start to plan doing this trip. This would be as analog as it gets. No Ferraris, which are analog up to a certain year, but you need a serious vehicle to get through this.
I want to take my Ferrari.
Like they talk about, Mr. Highway is a crazy dangerous road. And if you complete it, they do recognize your efforts by giving you a certification to say that you've actually completed it, because it's very difficult to complete. Somehow this guy is driving around out there in his Ford minivan, but so I don't know, he must have grown up out there.
It looks like a panel van. I'm pretty sure there's bodies in it.
Maybe bears,
No,
but keep yourself safe out there. So as of seeing so much wildlife, and I think it would be an amazing bonding experience for the aficionados. So let us know what you guys think. Maybe one day we can make it happen.
Yeah, I'm definitely in. We're gonna need to get that G-Wagon back.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of terrifying.
Yeah,
I'd be so scared of breaking it.
and then just
Like not. Sorry.
We'd run out of gas immediately, and then just get eaten by bears.
Well, regardless of what vehicle we need, or what vehicle we take, we would most likely need to take extra jerry cans of gas with us on the roof rack or out the back somehow, just in case there's an issue. You always want to take extra fuel with you if you're going deep into the wilderness. You know, just like you want to take extra tires, extra fluids. You want to take extra everything so you can replace anything or fill up any fluid if you're in the middle of nowhere.
Pretty sure Peter's going to end up just bringing wild raspberry.
Wild raspberry.
You should be sponsored by Wild Rose, seriously, Peter. Our first
You
sponsor.
can work on them and Leffa at the same time.
Oh fuck yeah, Leffa really owes me, man.
Between the three of us, we've been dumping a lot of dumping a lot of money into the beer industry.
Dumping a lot of beer into the money industry.
So I'm going to jump to a car that would not be suitable in any way in the Yukon, or in most places in northern parts of North America. And now it's suitable for smokers again. So I was about to say Subaru. So Porsche, you know me, I love Subaru. Always have it on my mind. So Porsche just released not too long ago that they have had to issue a recall due to the potential for cigarette butts or cigar butts being sucked in through the side air intakes and into the engine. So apparently, you know, the issue is not necessarily that this is a problem with the car, but how many of the owners of this car are smokers? You know, how many people have had this experience that Porsche has had to actually take action to modify the air intakes so the driver's cigarettes don't fly into the engine as they're driving down the road? I think this is a hilarious story.
When you
Glad to know the Porsche's fixed it. So if one day I buy a used model, I don't have to worry about the engine having blown on it or maybe cigarettes somewhere stuck in the engine bay. But this is hilarious.
When you drive a Cockster, the world is your ashtray. It ends up in your fucking engine, so eat that.
Well, yeah, I would drive one.
Yeah,
especially the earlier generations with the naturally aspirated flat six, maybe like the GTS model, which is pretty rare to find.
Yeah,
or the RS model. But yeah, I think they're great cars. I just think this is a hilarious story.
Moral of the story:
turns out a lot of Porsche Boxster owners are smokers.
Yeah, the moral of the story is don't smoke. Just do bong hits like Daniel. In the middle of
a Boxster owner if you want to stay smoke free.
I'm just imagining Daniel driving a Boxster right now, doing a bong hit, and then being finished the bong hit, and then chucking the bong out the window or no window, and it's just going into the fucking vent.
A changed man. I'm a changed man. That doesn't happen. I figured out how to throw things out the window properly now.
Daniel's into edibles now.
Yeah, got those special oils going on before.
He throws his poos out.
Nice tea.
He takes the edible, he makes the poos, he takes them in his hand, throws them out the back of his Boxster.
Don't you dare break doctor-patient confidentiality here. I don't want anyone else knowing about my bowel movements. I'm
no longer your horologist, your urologist, or proctologist.
Now you're just my friend. Yeah. We've been through a lot. That's right. And soon Peter is going to be jumping in an ambulance to come and take me to the hospital.
No ambulance.
Too much oil.
Right. Well,
so yeah, I think, and then I think the last thing that I would share is that there's been breaking news that the new generation of Range Rover Sport is reportedly going to get the same 4.5 liter V8 or 4.4 liter V8 that is in the BMW X5, BMW X6, sorry, X5M, X6M, and also the M5. So, you know, it's going to offer around 600 horsepower, very high torque numbers, and as far as I understand, it's a pretty serious jump over the outgoing engine. So I am a fan of both Land Rover, Range Rover lineup, and I'm a huge BMW fan. And, you know, I previously owned one of their vehicles with a V8 in it, and I just think that they make absolutely amazing engines.
What Daniel will tell you is that it grenaded.
Yes. So once I got an E39 Dynan 5 in the year 1999, up to about 230,000 kilometers. The time I put the vehicle into storage for about 6 months, took it out, and when I started it up, there was a terrible rattle, and basically immediately the timing chain popped off the guide rail, and all the internals bent. So it would have required a full rebuild or motor replacement, which at the time would have been, I don't know, if I did the work myself with some help, it would have been probably about 15 grand.
Back then,
I can't rebuild an engine myself. I'd have to have the engine rebuilt. That would have been a lot. But for everything else, that being said, if you do own an E39 or any of those BMWs with the 4.4 liter V8, there are actually timing chain guide rail upgrades and systems that you can buy out there. And I would strongly recommend having those installed on your vehicle so you don't go through an absolutely devastating experience and potentially lose the love of your life and miss it every day.
Daniel is still devastated.
I am still devastated. That was my favorite car that I've ever owned.
You really shouldn't have thrown the bong out the window.
No. I'm a good boy. Anyways, there's a quick shot of the new Daddy Land Rover, which I think is hideous. What do you guys think?
It
looks like a giant Ford Flex.
It reminds me of the language that the entry-level Range Rover is. What, the Evoque, that was designed in collaboration with Posh Spice.
Yeah, Victoria Beckham.
Yeah.
I think that's all just bullshit, though. Really, like trying to attach. It's just like what celebrities do, showing, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio with their fancy watch. Ooh, for some reason, Victoria Beckham got involved in Land Rover, Range Rover, and that makes me interested.
It definitely,
like, of all the celebrities, I love her. I'm not criticizing her personally. I'm just questioning their decision.
I'd be more interested if it was David Beckham who was involved. I mean, I feel like he's kind of a good Tudor ambassador, surprisingly. Like,
he's the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he would have to be like the ambassador for something like this. Clearly, they're making a sexist remark by saying that the Evoque is your wife's car, right? That's clearly what they're saying.
I mean, that is kind of the thing that exactly goes through my mind anytime a colleague of mine mentions that they have bought an Evoque.
Oh, I cringe literally every time. Like, why?
Yeah.
Of all of the models that they make, that one?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyways, there's some pretty cool car news out there.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll just finish off my segment by talking about a potential modification that I'll be making to my Mercedes CLK 430. So when I did have another car before, I took it to this shop in Mississauga, Zorro Muffler. Now, the name isn't what sold me on it, but it did convince me.
It's definitely the phone number.
That is the correct phone number. They're really nice guys.
God.
And the work is extremely affordable. So what I've talked to them about is cutting out the back resonator or silencer on the exhaust system of my vehicle, and then leaving the rest of the exhaust system stock, obviously leaving all the catalytic converters in place. It's already got the AMG muffler on it. And it runs very quietly at speed. And neither them nor I think that doing that delete would cause too much of a drone in the cabin while cruising, but would add a little bit of like a deeper kind of throaty grunt under acceleration and under startup. So I've done it before on a previous car, and it did make a noticeable difference. It sounded more fun,
So
but
hold
it
on.
didn't
You want to
deafen the
make,
neighbors.
you want to
Sorry?
make things sound a little bit more throaty, and if you want to upgrade, you have to call 897 Muff. How the fuck did you just bury that lead? The phone number to Zorro Muffler, for those who are interested, is 897 Muff. Muff.
Best
How
muff in
is that
town.
fucking legal? Jesus.
Best muff in town. They're also in Hamilton and Welland.
Well, clearly Daniel's getting a discount from Zorro Muffler after the podcast just rapidly disseminated, went viral because of 897 Muff. That's 897 Muff. Now, don't forget to give Daniel a 50% off on his throaty muff.
50% off. Yeah, I'll take it. That's a good deal.
The
But
throatiest
I mean,
of muffs.
I've been quoted for under $200 with a nice light stainless steel replacement. So that would be an interesting, quite affordable modification to do. Not that saving weight on that car is much of a deal, because that thing is freaking heavy. Actually, by today's standards, it's light, but by those days' standards, it was heavy. I think it's about 3,500 pounds. So compared to like the Audi e-tron, which is like, I don't know what it is in pounds. It's about 2,300 kilograms.
You know,
That
I
is
was actually
nuts.
just thinking about you and your car because I was watching what's his name, the guy who buys all the shitty cars, Hoovy. I was watching Hoovy's garage on his reviews of he had bought an E46 M3, and he's like there at the shop because it's totally fucked because he always buys lemons at the cheapest price, and they're gonna have to replace the transmission. But right next to the thing on the hoist, and he's saying, you know, the E46 M3 is not the be all and end all. He's like, meanwhile, same era CLK sitting here, V8, beautiful, naturally aspirated. You know, people shit on it because it's not a manual, it's automatic. But they were great sounding cars, great cars, and they're like a fraction of the price. I'm still amazed that they're so cheap, and that is a pretty cool cruiser. I mean, it's a different car. I mean, because the E46 is very, you know, much more of a scalpel, whereas the CLK that you have is like, you know, a hammer, you know, but a smooth hammer. You know, it's the hammer that you want to, you know, lube up to. So
it is extremely smooth, and it's a lot faster than people think.
mm-hmm.
It's hilarious to embarrass people on the highway or other roads when they decide to try and overtake you in some weird maneuver, you know, like V8 has got some pretty quick responding power to it, and even though it's an old car, I would guess the system was underrated from the factory, because, you know, it says stock 285 horsepower, and I can't remember if it's about 300 pound-feet of torque.
It's the torque.
Like it definitely feels like that torque, but it also feels like there's more horsepower, because when you're on the highway and you gas it, it just goes, like it takes off. It's so that like that highway passing power that people talk about, like it's got that. And I've seen it keeping up with M3s and same generation Carreras on the Nürburgring. Like a guy in a convertible CLK 430 just giving her around the Nürburgring, keeping up with those same era cars. Like they would kind of lose him a bit in the corners, but he was like full drifting around the corners and then coming into these amazing straights and just catching right back up to them. I was like, that's the car I drive. What? Like, I had no idea. But I'll finish by saying I had set out originally to buy either an E46 M3 or an E92 Cabrio or an E46 Cabrio.
E93 Cabrio.
And yeah. So those were the ones I had set out for, but at the time there was nothing available either in province or in the neighboring provinces that was interesting. So then I decided, like, what's Mercedes got to offer? I've not owned a Mercedes before. I've owned a couple Beamers before. Why not try a different brand instead of buying a third BMW, you know? And I don't regret my decision at all. I love this car. You know, in fact, I'm trying to figure out ways to make sure that I can keep it longer, keep it in good shape, and to make sure I can continue enjoying the car. So, you know, nothing dramatic is going to happen. I'm going to keep it basically all OEM. But this one little modification, you can keep the resonator, have it put back into place at any point in time, and won't affect the resale value of the vehicle, but might add a little bit of fun to my experience after driving it for a few years now. So I'll let you guys know what happens. Probably won't be for a few weeks still, though.
I'm anticipating it'll be smooth, it'll be throaty, and it'll be muff.
All of the best things. It's
Thank
like, it's got all the best. It's got all the best. It checks all the boxes.
Thank you, Zorro Muffler, and
Zorro
Zorro
Muff.
invoicing you for your sponsorship, as well as Daniel's Wild Raspberry Wild Rose. And this is also brought to you by not Leffa or G-Shock. Nobody is paying us anything because mostly it's just dick jokes. And if we could only get dick jokes as a sponsor, we'd be really good. But that being said, thanks again for tuning in to another Three Aficionados. We've made so many of these. We're now up to like 5 viewers. Thank you all for your
All is rolling.
indulgence for the dick joke. Have a good one. We'll see you, boys.